You're listening to Desert Island Gems, an in-depth and intimate interview where we ask our guests to select meaningful gems that they would take to a desert island if they were cast away alone. We hope that their journey inspires you and helps you reflect. For more information on the show, and look out for extended versions of the interviews on McMuslim.tv, the new online video channel for Scottish Muslims. Our guest today is Shaykh Amer Jamil. Born and brought up in Glasgow, Shaykh Amer is one of the co-founders of the I-Syllabus Islamic Studies programme that has educated thousands of people across the UK over many years. He spent over a decade studying Islamic sciences in the UK, Syria and Yemen before returning back to Scotland and benefiting the community. Specialising in family law and working with Unity Family Services, Shaykh Amer has become one of the leading figures in the UK, providing guidance and advice for those seeking help with the most complex of personal dilemmas, often including family relationship issues, domestic abuse, mental health issues and much more. He runs courses for those considering marriage and also for those who are seeking to improve their marriage. He is described as pragmatic and accessible, and his extensive Islamic scholarship has been helped by his law degree from Strathclyde University. He is also a trained counsellor and NLP practitioner. So Shaykh Amer, Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Now, we've known each other for many years, and more recently the majority of your time is taken up educating others, particularly with the I-Syllabus programme. For those not familiar with the I-Syllabus, what do you hope to achieve as an organisation?
So alhamdulillah, as always, we always praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and ultimately all success, all tawfiq comes from Him. Ultimately, when I came back from my studies abroad, long time abroad, over a decade, and Shaykh Rizwan had a similar experience to me, we, even during our studies, we were discussing about what we were going to do when we got back. And when we came back, there was a big thirst for knowledge. And when we spoke to people, most of them were saying, look, we want to study. We really want to get serious about our deen now. But there's nowhere we can really go that's accessible, especially for sisters, where we can have access to scholars who understand where we're coming from, have had similar experiences, are going to give us pragmatic answers which make sense to our life today in 2009, it was that time, rather than something which works maybe if you're in a village in a different country. So we then asked people, how would the format be, how much time can you commit? And we quickly realized that people are busy in their lives. They do want to learn, but they're not at the level that maybe we were, that would actually go out and spend years and years. Most people with family life, personal life, could commit probably one evening a week. So we structured a course around their schedules, and it was a one evening a week course for the duration of a year. And it was there really to cover every aspect that they would face as a Muslim living in the West. And I think this is where it differentiates from other courses, similar courses in the UK today. A lot of courses will teach you the basics of praying, the basics of Ramadan, Zakat, basics of marriage or whatever, a little kind of flavour of Seerah and so on. However, what we were trying to do was trying to contextualise that. So not only do we want to cover the same stuff, but how do I contextualise this? So many things in the Seerah I can tell you. I could spend a whole lesson telling you the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ, but is that really beneficial for you in your time that you're living in now? So we had to cherry pick from all the sciences the stuff we thought was most relevant to people of our generation, having obviously been brought up here, gone through school, gone through university, had similar experiences to other people. We had a good idea of what the kind of questions that people would face. Alhamdulillah, we started that in 2009 in Glasgow, and then the demand kept growing. We moved to Edinburgh, we've covered Aberdeen, Dundee in Scotland. In England we've covered Bradford, Leeds, Manchester, Birmingham. Inshallah, we're now hoping to go to London in the forthcoming year. So the thirst and the drive is there for people. I think at that time, either you were a lay person or you were a scholar. There was nothing in between. And let's face it, how many people are going to become scholars? There's very, very few people. But I think with the talent that we have in the community, not everyone needs to be a scholar, but if we taught them up to a certain level, we could probably have so much productivity out of these people, maybe even more than a scholar. Sometimes think of the people that inspired us. Someone like Ahmed Didat wasn't a scholar. He was just a specialist in Islam and Christianity, but look at the impact he had. And there's other people like that who weren't fully blown scholars but had a lot of impact. So in terms of having impact doesn't necessarily mean it's the person with the most knowledge. If we give enough knowledge to the right people, I think we can have a massive impact in their own personal lives, in their family life, but also on a society level. And if we can get our community contributing more to not only just the Muslim community, but the wider society, then that is going to be beneficial for everybody. Now, you're a doctor, you're going to mix with people I'm never going to mix with. You're going to have access to people I'm never going to have access to. You're going to have conversations I will never be part of them. So if I give that knowledge to you or give you enough knowledge, then I know that that will be passed on to other people, other circles which I would never get access to. And for you, you're a Muslim. You are a doctor, of course, but part and parcel of your identity is your Islam. People will see that. People are going to ask you about, oh, you're a Muslim, your name's Aman Allah, you seem to be practicing, you pray. What does Islam say about this? Oh, I saw this in the news the other day, and is this true? Is this what your religion's saying? So you have to have enough knowledge that you can navigate your life. Your children are growing up in the society. They're going to come to you and ask you questions. Dad, I was taught in school today that we come from apes, but in madrasa they're saying that Adam was the first human being. What's the situation? You have to have enough knowledge that you can educate your own children and your obviously family members, colleagues at work, non-Muslims. So in every aspect of life, you are a person of da'wah. This ummah, the Prophet's ummah, is an ummah of da'wah. He's the last prophet. No other prophets are going to come after that. And the responsibility of da'wah is on our shoulders. If we don't know our own faith, how can we expect anyone else to know anything about it?
And so the starting point of one of your courses, the diploma level, the idea is that it's supposed to teach people the minimum that they need to know about worshipping and practicing their faith. Has it surprised you over the years about how much limited knowledge there is amongst some people and amongst the community, even in terms of these basics?
I think worryingly, yes. And I think what happens is when you're so engrossed in a subject, there's certain things which are givens, and you just assume that everybody knows this, and you think it's too basic to even mention it. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Over time, after having been delivering talks and lectures and classes in different forums, I've realised that you should never assume things. You always cover the basics, because there's going to be somebody that doesn't understand or doesn't know, or maybe has partial understanding or misinformation. A lot of the times, we've got culture mixed up with religion, and so there's a lot of unpeeling that we have to do so that people understand, oh, actually this is culture, this is religion. What my mum said was 80% fine, but there's 20% which was actually incorrect. And so I think when you do speak to people, sometimes it's actually shocking the level of our education. And this is a failure, I think, when you have a person who's a doctor in society, or a lawyer, somebody who's got impact in society, knows their field very well, but when it comes to his own prophet or her own prophet, doesn't know who his wives were, doesn't know who his children were, doesn't know certain. You mentioned a prophet's name. Who's that? And you're like, it's a prophet of Allah. Like all the things in your life, you don't even know this essential thing. Our we're exposed to so much information in our age. It's the age of information, isn't it? We know so much information, but a lot of it is not beneficial. I might know Beckham's record on whatever it is, or I might know he's married to Posh Spice and his kids are XYZ. Yet I don't know the Prophet Sallallahu wife. I don't know his children's names. That's a tragedy. where I can know details of somebody who I'm not even connected to. I don't even share the same faith. They might not believe in my prophet. They might not believe in God. I know more about them than my own prophet, who's my role model in life, supposed to be my role model in life. Somebody I'm supposed to love more than anyone after God, yet I don't know him.
Now, often people don't see the hours, months, and years of research and preparation that comes into delivering these courses, and also the thousands of miles that you spend traveling and teaching. And that can be very draining. Are there any examples you can think of students where it has benefited people and it makes it all worthwhile?
Knowledge is light. So there's a certain light in this tradition that we're carrying. And so we talk about something called the sanad, or the chain of transmission. So the traditional system would have been that, you're my teacher, you would have taught me, I would have had my students taught them. So there's a chain that connects all of us. So the traditional system is that whatever you've been studying, whatever science it is, you have a chain of transmission that takes you back to the original source. So in hadith, you would have a chain all the way back to Imam Bukhari, and Imam Bukhari's then got his chain back to the Prophet ﷺ. So in this way, there's this light that's been transmitted through this knowledge. So this is why when you're sitting in a class and you're discussing Islamic studies, there's a certain feeling that you come away with in that class. Your soul is uplifted. You feel nourished spiritually, and so that people have consistently said to me, at the end of the course, I don't know what I'm going to do, because my weekly, as it's been described as a weekly iman boost, it's coming to an end, and I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of the summer, because every week I knew this was the thing that was going to keep me going. It'd give me inspiration. It'd feel great, and it's come to an end. What do I do now? And so there are individual cases where people have said to me. I remember one sister said very early on that she didn't pray before doing the course, and she said at the end of the course she was praying 5 times a day. So alhamdulillah, that's something that gives you a lot of satisfaction, that you've got somebody closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another person I remember said to me that he was at a ta'ziyah or afsos, or condolences when someone passes away, and somebody was saying something about hadith being made up. And he said, having done the course, I remembered the module on hadith studies, and I said, actually, uncle, it's not like that. It's like this, and there is evidence that it was written. And the man went silent. Then he said something else, and then he goes, I remembered something from the Tazkiyah module about having a good opinion, and it's a disease of the heart to keep criticizing. And I mentioned that. He goes, then again the person went quiet and didn't speak again. The point he was trying to make to me was, had I not interjected, this person would have influenced other people who were listening to him attentively, and it was misinformation getting passed on. And he just felt empowered that, I had the ability, I'm not a scholar, but I had the ability to stop a potential fitna happening to other people, other people's religion, being affected by this person. So he was so happy that he phoned me up. He said, Shaykh, I just want to tell you, this happened, and, it was because I had the knowledge, to say it, and had I not had that, I wouldn't have had the confidence to say anything. Maybe I would have got confused myself. So he just appreciated the impact. And many people like that, there's people who have said, I've had problems with my family for years and years. And I was having a conversation with my sister the other day, and she said, I've seen that you've changed over this year, and you've become a warmer person, a better person. And I realize it's syllabus that's changed you as a person. And now I believe that you're the person that's going to resolve our family issues. So people, out of happiness, they will email us in and discuss this. One I remember off the top of my head was a Tunisian sister who's from a Muslim country, came here to do her PhD in Edinburgh, but she was so impacted by syllabus. She said that, I'm from a Muslim country and I didn't have the opportunity to access this knowledge there. And I had to come to Edinburgh to have this opportunity. And you're just like, wow, subhanAllah, in a Muslim country you didn't have this access, you didn't have the ability to get this knowledge, but you got it here. So alhamdulillah, it's been it's one of the things that really gives you a lot of job satisfaction, you could say, that when you do this, and yeah, it's obviously it's difficult. You have to travel a lot. You're away from your family. There is a lot of prep. There's a lot of time that goes into organizing these things. But when you get emails like that, it makes it all worthwhile, alhamdulillah.
So we're going to cast you away on this desert island, and you're going to take some of these items with you. So let's hear about the first item that you've chosen that you're going to take along with you to this desert island.
So obviously the Quran is the book of Allah. It's the truth. It's Allah's word. We all believe it's 100% the truth. It comes from our Creator Himself. So the first is a verse of the Quran, and it's from the chapter of light, Surah Nur, chapter 24. When I was initially studying Arabic, I was improving my tajweed, the art of recitation, and alhamdulillah, as I progressed and it became a lot better, one of the earliest earliest chapters I memorized was this chapter, Surah Nur. And there's a verse, Allahu nuru samawati wal ard. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally would say is the light of the heavens of the earth, but it's Allah's not created. So the scholars of tafsir says Allah is the source of the light of the heavens and the earth. And so that verse has always struck a chord with me. And I think it's a reminder of the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything that leads to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is light. So you have light and you have darkness. So when you think of difficult times in your life, it's a moment of darkness. You feel in the dark. And darkness is actually just the absence of light. So when you have light, the darkness dissipates. And so if we had light in our lives, the darkness would dissipate. So whatever darkness it is, it will dissipate when there's light. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a light. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a guiding light. The ulama are light. When you see somebody who's very quote unquote pious, I mean, we can't judge piety because piety is something in the heart. But, we see a person, as they say, on his face is fi wajhi salah, in his face there's a kind of righteousness. You see these people who you feel, closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the company. And what will people say? The person's got nur on his face. He's got light on his face. Yeah. So there's a certain illumination, that physical illumination, there's a metaphorical illumination. So ultimately, everything that we're seeking is the light, is the light from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the light of the Prophet sallam, it's the light of these men of Allah, it's the light that we gain from the Quran, the light we gain from the Sunnah, the light we gain from all this beneficial knowledge. So this verse always reminds me of the importance of divine light.
And during some of your journeys, have there been any particular scholars or imams that have particularly had a significant impact on you in terms of you talking about light from people in Nur? Are there any scholars or individuals that you feel have had a big impact on you?
Yeah, some of my personal teachers who I think I just saw their lives and just saw so much dedication. Their whole life revolved around God, revolved around knowledge, revolved around benefiting other people, lives of sacrifice, doing without much of the world. So the things that people are interested in, the car you drive, the house you live in, the clothes you wear. These people were just like, this is just irrelevant. And being in their company, you start to take on those attributes. I mean, the reasons the Sahaba are such great people is because they spent time in the company of the greatest of all people. And so some of the characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ they adopted. And similarly, when you're with these people, you start to adopt, you see how they are with other people, you see how they're with their wife, their children, and you start to try to emulate them. So some of these people were just phenomenal. They would spend from day to night just benefiting. It was just like giving of themselves all the time. Before actually studying one of the people that had a big impact on me. And I think a lot of people at that time, back in the 90s, was Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. And I think the reason he had such an impact, he was so articulate. It was one of the few scholars who could relate the Islamic science, the teachings of Quran Sunnah, to Western life, and he'd quote Western books, and he'd show the correlation, and he'd show how Islam is, the truth. And again, you look at him and you think, this person was born Muslim. I'm a born Muslim. He actually chose this. He became he adopted this faith, and look at how much in such a short period he knows. And so it almost put you to shame in a sense that, we're born Muslims and we don't know about our religion. This person just become Muslim in a few years. Seems to have so much endless knowledge. So I attended a summer course with him, the Rihla course. It's very famous now, but that was the very first one, 1996. And I was only 19 at the time. Young guy. Sheikh Hamza was in his late 30s, some 20 years older, but so inspirational. And you could see the benefit he was having. And I think that was the first time I thought of a scholar as a role model, that I would actually like to be like him. I didn't get this feeling from the local imam. I didn't get this feeling from other scholars. It wasn't somebody I looked at and thought, yeah, I want to be like him. But I think that was the first time in my life, a scholar I looked at and thought, yeah, I could foresee myself being like somebody like him who can benefit so many people.
So let me take you back a little bit to a young boy growing up in Glasgow. Can you paint us a picture of what life was like growing up? What are your sort of early memories?
So I think I had just an average life with like most people. I wasn't particularly from a religious family. No one really prayed. None of the women really wore hijab. In Ramadan we'd fast. You'd make an effort for Taraweeh prayers. You'd go for Jummah now and again. You'd go for the Eid prayer. You learnt the basics of Quran and madrasa, but that was about it. Most of it was going to school, playing a lot, doing sports, all the kind of stuff that other people was really doing at that time. I lived in a predominantly non-Muslim area, so I was a bit of a minority at school, probably one of the few Asians. So the usual at that time, you'd face racism. I think the society's gone a long way now. It was a lot more tolerant of racism then than it is now. My dad, as a businessman, you'd go to the shop, the restaurant, go in, and you'd help out in my teenage years. I would help out, work on the weekends. Typical stuff that really any other teenager do: play cricket, play football, that kind of stuff.
And you mentioned racism. I mean, are there particular instances that you remember of experiencing racism growing up?
I think it was just a regular occurrence. It was just a regular occurrence, just taunts, verbal insults. It was just a constant.
Would this be at school or at home?
Yeah, at school. At school.
And how did you deal with that?
On the streets as well. I think you just you learn to stand up for yourself. So it was very much, if you showed weakness, you'd be trampled on, and so you had to get into some fights. You'd have to show that you could take care of yourself, that you were not going to be a pushover, because if you showed that, then it would just only increase.
And I guess growing up as well, particularly during adolescence, there's whole issues about identity and your journey that you're going through. Did you ever feel some of that real pull in these different directions about being from Glasgow, being South Asian, being a Muslim? Do you remember some of these sort of internal struggles at the time?
Of course. Like most people, as a young child, even though I wasn't from a predominantly religious family, but certain things you didn't do, like eat haram, meat. So, your dietary practice was different from all the other kids at school. Certain things that you did or didn't do. So, for example, I remember kids I remember in school we were told, draw your favourite dish you have at a restaurant. I'd never been to a restaurant in my life, because that wasn't the culture at that time. Whereas non-Muslim kids, they used to go out to eat, so they were all drawing stuff. So I had to pretend, I had to kind of imagine or just make up something on the spot. So I remember drawing a curry, and I tried to think of what does a curry look like in a restaurant. And I just made it up, So we didn't have that culture of going out. We didn't used to go on holidays. Our concept of going holidays was one day in Butlins or one day at Alton Towers, when 50 people from your family would go down in a couple of vans for the day, and that was considered to be a holiday, So it wasn't like going abroad for a couple of weeks. The culture's changed now, but I'm talking about then. We didn't really go out to eat out. Again, that kind of developed maybe in my teenage years, but as a child, we didn't really kind of do that. We would go visiting, other families and things like that. But in terms of what other people would do, in terms of going holidays, going out to eat, that kind of culture was very different for us.
And when you were in school, were you quite a quiet person, or were you quite loud and sociable? Or because I guess now, you speak in front of thousands of people and stuff. Have you always been quite confident and quite outgoing?
I would say I've always been quite a social and jovial kind of person. I do like to have a laugh. I do like my jokes. As a child, it was a bit of both. There was that feeling of being a minority. I think as I got older, went to high school, that came out a bit more. My personality came out a bit more. I was quite sociable. I was always playing sports. I was good at sports, alhamdulillah. Whether I did basketball, football, rugby, cricket. So I was always involved in gymnastics. I was always involved in the school activities. In class, I did mess about, in class. I was a class joker, up to, pranks and things like that. But I did, participate with the teacher. I wasn't one of the shy, quiet ones.
And you went on to study law. Tell us about why you chose that, and what was it? Were you always on that trajectory to become a lawyer?
I think it's very difficult when you're making a decision of what you want to do for the rest of your life at age of 16. How many people really do know what they want at that age? I question that. I was at school. I wasn't the most intelligent, but I was well above average. Had decent grades. Your parents obviously have high expectations of you. One of my brothers had done accountancy. My other brother had done electronic engineering. My sister had become a doctor, was doing medicine. My other sister was doing IT. So there's an expectation that you need to do something. And I think it was more to do with what my family wanted from me rather than me. I don't think I really knew what I wanted, but I was kind of pushed towards law. Had the grades, and therefore I went into it. I thought it's a decent career. Everyone seemed to say, yeah, you can't really go wrong with it.
And what are your memories of university days?
University days, alhamdulillah, I went to Strathclyde University. University was good. I enjoyed myself. Didn't study as hard as I should have, like many people that go to university. I think you've come from a culture where it's very quite controlled. Your parents are always, on your case. You go to university, and you're on your own. Your parents think the parents, because they've never been to university themselves, they think all you do is study from morning to night. It's very easy to just tell me I'm in the library, I'm doing this and that. Yeah, I was in the library, I was messing about, and, socializing with my friends. But, you do have that scope of, you're a bit older, your parents trust you a bit more, you got grant, you got a bit of money, so you did tend to socialize and spend money going out, eating, all this kind of stuff. I did get involved in some societies. I ended up running the cricket club with my friend. So yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. Met a lot of people, different from different countries, different age groups. Because at school you're on with the same age group. University, you've got older students. You've got people who are different ages. So you learn a lot more about life. You're a lot more exchange going on. They're asking you stuff. You're asking them stuff. You're learning a lot of life skills from other people. You're getting involved in different projects. There was a lot of Dawah projects that were going on at that time as well. Getting involved in Radio Ramadan. I remember that happened during university. So you try, different things. You're sampling life. You're having different experiences.
And were you becoming more religiously aware and conscious about faith and religion at that time, or had it been started before university?
I think what happened was in high school, being a very sociable person, being in the rugby team, mixing with cool guys, you could say. What happens around about the third, fourth year is that obviously for non-Muslims, they start going out more. They start trying drink. They start having girlfriends, relationships. And at that point, one thing I was quite strict on was, I might have done a lot of things, but one thing I wasn't going to do was alcohol. I was quite strict about that. So there is this kind of barrier straight away, because one of their main, aspects of their life revolves around drink. And one of the things that we're quite strict on is that we don't drink. So I think at that point there was not a religious identity, but a kind of cultural realization that I am different. I have a different lifestyle from these people, but I had great friends. So they'd talk about on the Monday what they did, and they got drunk and they got leathered, smashed, all this kind of stuff. Whereas on the weekend I'd been at the restaurant helping my dad. So I think it happened at that point where you start to feel different. And I remember I'm in a predominantly non-Muslim, white, middle-class kind of school. So your colour's different, your religion's different, your culture's different. So you do feel this, that I'm different. And that takes you on your own journey of, who am I? What is my identity? As I went to university, I got a lot more Asian friends, a lot more Muslim friends, who are a bit more like me. So you're a bit more comfortable in who you are. But for me, the journey kept continuing, and again, I still wasn't outwardly practicing at this point. But because you're mixing with so many different types of people, they're asking you questions, you're asking yourself questions. You just start questioning your identity. Who am I? What am I doing here? Where am I going? And so I was starting to buy books on this kind of topic and exploring religion, I think, a lot more.
And did the Islamic Society have an influence or a role to play for you?
Islamic Society, I just joined, like in so many other societies I was joining at that time, just to try things out. So at least I found out where the Jummah was. I found out where I could, get some halal burgers. So at that time, they got a prayer room that year when I was there. I didn't really use it apart from Ramadan, but then, it got to a point where, because other people I knew would pray, I would just go along, pray with them. And so I slowly got into the whole Islamic Society from that perspective. Then during about second year of my course is when I did that 1 month course with Shaykh Hamza, which really, I think, changed my trajectory in life. At that point, I was still going to be a lawyer. I think at that point, I stood back and started to really reflect on what I wanted to do. One of the things I remember Shaykh Hamza said that, we've got lots of doctors, we've got lots of lawyers, and okay, what is the impact? What is their output? What is the footprint that they're going to leave behind for the next generations? And he said one of the things we're missing is scholars who are born, brought up in the West, who understand the West, and who can take Islam to the West. And then, he kind of asked us that, put it out there, and a lot of us that were actually on that course went off to study after that. At that point, I was just kind of thinking, well, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I was looking, I think university for me was a time of reflection as well. I was looking at what's happening in society. I was looking at our generation, how many of them, identified as Muslim, how many of them were engaged in non-Islamic practices. And I was thinking about the future. I thought, well, going forward, generations in the future, will we remain Muslim? Will this get passed on, or is it just going to be a cultural thing that will fizzle out with time? So all these things were going on in my mind at that time.
So take us to your next item that you're going to take along with you on this desert island.
So there's a quote from Muhammad Iqbal, who is the Indian subcontinent poet from about 100 years ago now. And I read a book when I'd finished my degree and I was doing Arabic at that time. So it's the beginning of my Islamic studies. I was still not sure how long I was going to study for, and I was reading some of the stories of the greats of the past, the Muslim heroes or significant historical figures in Islamic history and what contributions they had made. I guess that was part of the inspiration, that these people came and they lived in this world and they done something. And look at the influence they've had. And so many people have come and gone in life, and they haven't done anything apart from eat, drink, sleep, procreate, and that's it. So Muhammad Iqbal I found very inspirational in terms of where he started and how he ended up and the contribution he made. And these are poems that you still hear today in Jummah khutbahs. People still quote him, and he's been dead for over 70, 80 years. So he was writing at a time where the majority of the Muslim lands were under colonial rule. So he's looking at the end of the 20th century, the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. Around that time, it's a bit of a low point for the Muslim Ummah. He's again reflecting, and I was in that reflective state as well. He's reflecting on what's happening, what's the solution, where's it all gone wrong. And there's a poem that I read and I underlined it, and he says, "Let us live in the world like a lamp. We should burn ourselves but illuminate the way for others." And this, for me, connected to me to an earlier memory, and that earlier memory was of my taya, which is my father's older brother. And I always saw him like a grandfather figure. I was 10 years old when he passed away, and he was the first person in my family. It was the first death experience I had had. He actually passed away before my grandfather. And significantly older than my father. So I saw him as my kind of grandfather figure. And he had always said to us that everyone can live for themselves. Anyone can live for themselves. Right, and just think about themselves. But a real man or a real person is one who lives for other people. In other words, to sacrifice your own desire for the sake of other people, altruism, preferring others before yourself. And that's obviously a Muslim prophetic characteristic. But at the time, I didn't know that. I'm just a child from my early teens. But this quote from Muhammad Iqbal took me back to that it's about anyone can live for themselves, but you will only achieve benefit for yourself and no one else. But if you really want to do something with this life, this one chance at life that you've got, time will not come back. This moment will not come back. And we're all going to leave. Muhammad Iqbal came, gone. My taya, great man, came, gone. And I'm going to come and go. The next generation will come, they'll come. Everyone's going to come and go. But what is it I'm going to do with this life? What's one life I've got? And so this idea of not just living your life for yourself, but actually sacrificing. The Prophet ﷺ came, he sacrificed. The Sahaba came, they sacrificed their lives for this religion, for their creator. And so I wanted to follow in that kind of footstep as well.
Now, many years ago, we did a radio show on Radio Ramadan, and we talked about these elements in life, and one of them we talked quite in depth about death and bereavement as one of the issues for people to face, and obviously a very difficult time in one's life. And soon after we did that program, your father became unwell and he passed away. May Allah granted him the highest status in Jannah, inshallah. And if I remember correctly, you led his janazah as well. Can you describe a little bit about what that time was like? Because obviously he was a very significant figure for you. Can you tell us a bit about what that time was like?
Yeah, so my father passed away when I was 30. I'm the youngest of my family, and it was about 8 years into my studies abroad. So for the last 8 years of my adult life, at that point, I had not been with my father. And I think this is one of the sacrifices you make. You go out, you leave your family behind. It's a sacrifice for your family as well, because he never saw his youngest son for 8 years, for the last 8 years of his life. But he knew that it was significant, he knew it was important. And so that's a sacrifice from his aspect, it's a sacrifice from my aspect. But I think with his passing away, your father is the central rock, you could say, in your life. He's that stable figure, that you're unshakable figure that you can turn to, is reliable. He's your provider. And my dad was quite a kind of alpha male in that sense. He was quite a strong person. He was like an anchor. And my father had an interesting relationship with him. He was a kind of sociable person, a people's person. And he used to always talk to me when we were in the car, we were driving. He'd talk and he'd ask me certain things. And so when he passed away, since he's passed away, even till today, I still remember things that have stuck with me that he said. And as you get older, with life experience, you're like, my dad was right. At the time you say, oh, your dad, here he goes again. But now with life, as life transpires, you realise actually it was wisdom he was passing on, it was life experience he was passing on. And so, as somebody now who deals with so many people's problems, sometimes I actually think of, my dad actually said that this was going to happen, and this was, so it does make you appreciate him a lot more than maybe when you're very young. And I think at that point where that figure is gone now in your life, you realise, I've got to stand on 2 feet now. I'm on my own in a sense. I've got to be a man in my own right. Alhamdulillah, it gave me great comfort to lead his janazah prayer, because he always said, if I pass away, I want you to lead my janazah prayer. At that time, it was very uncommon for other than the imam to lead the prayer, the janazah prayer. However, being a student of knowledge, I had enough knowledge, I was allowed to lead the prayer. And I then went to the burial place and I made a dua. Now this was, not just, an imam's employed to do that, so he's going to make a dua for whoever it is. But when it's your own father, the person that's looked after your entire life in that grave, the dua that comes out comes from your heart. And it was just the overwhelming emotion that came out. I think that the people that were there, about 150 people, they were all crying, because for them it was a son pleading with God for forgiveness for his father. And I remember after that, straight after, my mamu said that, Banja, he goes, like, my nephew, he goes, you're going to lead my janazah prayer. Because I want that kind of dua at my burial. And I think that was significant, because my brother said to me, he goes, you don't realise the impact of today, of that day. I said, what is the impact? He said, because when I went out in the path of knowledge, a lot of people thought I was making the wrong decision. I had a promising lawyer career in front of me, lots of money, lots of status in society, lots of respect. Yet in people's eyes, and I came from a reasonably well-off family, my relatives were all businessmen, motivated by business, profit, and so on. They could not understand, why do you want to leave that and become an imam? You have to study for so long, so many years, X years, and then you come back and you're going to get paid like peanuts, absolute peanuts in a mosque, and people tell you what to do, committee members, and if they don't like you, they'll get rid of you, and you just, you can't give your children a good start in life. Why do you want to throw all that away? So there was a lot of pressure on me from family, from friends, from community, throughout my studies, that I was making the wrong decision, that I'd made a bad decision, and I'm going to find out in the future. Like, we're going to basically say, we told you so. We told you not to do it. You didn't listen to us, and this is what happens. That day, when I led the prayer and I buried my father and made that dua, my brother said, the reason you've had an impact is because they've just realized that the only reason you were able to do that is because of your studies. And he said, how many of their sons, they might be lawyers, might be doctors, might be accountants, how many of their sons will be able to do that for them when they leave this world? So he basically said, you don't realize what's happening, but a lot of people are talking.
And do you think leading the janazah and the burial, did that make things easier for you or harder for you to deal with the grief?
I think it made it easier because I thought it was my dad's last wish and that this happened, and I was fortunate enough to do that. I wasn't there for the last few years of his life. I didn't have the opportunity to serve him, but I was able to fulfill his wish, and I knew that he'd be happy that this has happened.
And do you think that's very similar for other people that go abroad, particularly to study knowledge? Is there always that worry that what if something happens to our family while we're away? Like, alhamdulillah, you were back at that time, and obviously timing's in Allah's hands. But is there always that anxiety in these students of knowledge that I'm away from? It's not 6 months; it's years and years.
Yeah. There is that feeling because when I was there, some people their parents did pass away, and they weren't there for that, and they had to wait because they didn't have the money. They had to wait for a certain period before they could go home. So I can just imagine how difficult that would have been for them. My father, I knew, wasn't well. He'd said to me, look, I'm going to need a triple heart bypass. So I knew that anything could happen at any time. I think I was just happy that when it did happen, I was actually there. I had the ability to lead the prayer because he'd said to me on a number of occasions, I want you to lead my prayer. I want you to lead my prayer.
And had he supported you, I guess, this big change from, potentially being a lawyer to, starting to spend more Islam? Because you were one of the early generation of students who went abroad from Scotland or from the UK, so there wasn't a precedence.
Yeah, I think what you found at that time was the people who did go and become scholars were already from a scholarly family, who maybe their dad was an imam or the uncle was an imam. So there was that kind of encouragement towards that. Like you get families where the father's a doctor, the mother's a doctor, then obviously they get pushed into medicine, or the businessmen, so they push them into business. So it's almost like the family trade. I wasn't from that. I was from a predominantly business background, not hugely practicing. So for them, it was quite an extreme thing. I was the first one to have a beard in my family. That in itself was extreme. I was only 19. Why have you got a beard? You can keep a beard when you're older. Why are you praying? Why are you doing all these things? You're getting a bit extreme here. So in the initial period, my father thought that I'd just been influenced by quote unquote extremists, or the religious lot who are, just telling people forget the world and just go off and live as a monk. So I think he was thinking my young son, he's just impressionable. He's listened to these people, he's got carried away and he's following them. So he spoke to a lot of people to speak to me, so knock some sense into me. And a lot of people tried to convince me not to do this. I think what really saddened me was people who I thought would support me didn't. So people who were Islamically active in the community, doing a lot of Islamic projects, they themselves were trying to put me off. They're saying, you should become a lawyer. You shouldn't do it because you shouldn't become an imam. And I found that very disheartening. And I think I realised that they were quite short-sighted and they couldn't see the value of this. So the initial period was, I think, very difficult. And because it was my choice, it's very difficult for me to say, okay, I want to do this and you need to fund me. So it was my decision, and I felt, well, it's my decision. I need to fund myself now. I need to show that I've made the right decision. So I used to work in the summers, which was, I think, useful because it gives you experience of what it's like to work in the world. Maybe some of the imams have never had that kind of job, and I think that's maybe part of the disconnection that some of them have with the real world. So that was useful from that perspective. I had a number of jobs during the summers, different companies. And this is all pre-9/11, remember. A couple of years into my studies, 9/11 happened. I was in the city at the time. That was a game changer for the Muslim community. what non-Muslim community was asking questions. We had to provide spokespeople who could speak up. Who was going to speak up for us? It was only younger people who were articulate in the English language who could actually speak any sense when it came to the media and so on. I think after that period, when my dad saw that I'm determined, he saw that I'm not going to listen, I'm going to keep going. And also, I think post 9/11, he realised, actually, my son is the type of person who will now be able to explain Islam to this community. It's not going to be the imams from abroad. I think that's where his perspective changed. He saw what I could see, or he saw value in what I was doing. And I remember maybe a couple of years after that, he said, look, okay, I told you not to do this. You didn't listen to me. You seem to be quite determined. You want to do this. And he said, now that you've made that decision, he said, make sure you're successful at it. In other words, you've made this decision. Now do it to the best of your ability.
Do you think he'd be proud of you for what you've achieved?
I think so. I think even towards the end of, before he passed away, he saw me in one of the mosques doing khutbah. So I think he was proud that, my son's, benefiting. Because at the end of the day, your parents are concerned for you. They don't want you to have the struggles they had. They went through difficult times in their childhood, poverty. They came to a new country. They built a future for themselves. They didn't have education. They gave you education. They want ultimately what is best for you. But I think once he saw, my son will be okay. He'll get through life. And he's, people are listening to him and he's benefiting people. I think that gave him a degree of peace.
So Shaykh Amer, tell us about the next item you're going to take with you to the desert island.
Next item is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Obviously, there's so many to choose from, but there's one that always resonates with me. And I just think it's phenomenal hadith. And it's the hadith that says, Ajaban li amr al-mu'min. Amazing or astonishing is the affair of the believer. Indeed, all of his affair is good. Inna amrahu kullaluhu khair. Everything's always good. And it's for nobody except a believer. So something that's only Allah gives to a person who believes. And it says, if something good happens, إِذَا أَسَرَّتْهُ sarra, something good happens, happy times, he's thankful for it. So something good happens, you're grateful for it, and that's good for him. And if something difficult happens, hardship, difficulties in life, calamities, he's patient, and that's also good for him. So whether it's good times or bad times, it's always good. Good times, you're thankful, Allah reward you. Bad times, you're patient, Allah reward you. So in both situations, it's a reward, it's positive. There's actually no negativity. There's actually nothing, no harm, no low point at all.
Now, can you think of times when you've found life a real struggle and things have been really challenging for you?
Yeah, so I think that hadith is always something that you go to when you're maybe not feeling so good, you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, or life's getting too much for you. And when you come to that hadith, it makes you realize that, look, it doesn't matter, everything's good. At the end of the day, inshallah, everything's a positive. So that has really helped me in times of difficulty. For me, I would say the majority of the difficulties I faced was during my studies. It wasn't an easy process. Like I said before, you're up against your own family, up against your friends, up against your own community. People involved in Islamic work were against you. So many obstacles. People question you all the time. What are you going to do when you come back? How are you going to earn a living? How are you going to support your family? Really making you think about all these things. Having gone out, not from a religious family, not really fitting into any particular masjid, there was no guaranteed job at the end of what I was doing. I remember once one of my friends visited me in Syria, and he asked me, I don't understand what you're doing. Can you explain to me? So I explained to him. He goes, I still don't get it. He goes, look, I've got a degree. I've got a master's degree. He goes, I understand. You get a degree, you get a job. You do a master's degree, you got more skills, you get a better job. I do a PhD, I put more time in, more effort, I get an even better job. Right, so I understand that system, but because I don't understand, you're just spending time, you're reading a book with a sheikh. What are you getting? What qualifications you get at the end of it? What are you getting at the end of it? And I said, look, I'm getting knowledge. And that just wouldn't register with him, that you're getting something, but it doesn't equate to any monetary value. It doesn't equate to any increase in job prospects. It's just something which is nice. Whereas to me, I was like, well, I'm gaining knowledge of Allah. I'm gaining knowledge of my Creator. I'm gaining knowledge of my Prophet. I'm benefiting. I'm growing as a person. But that has no value. It's like housewives. A lot of housewives feel undervalued by society. They'll say, I'm only a housewife. Yet, what they're doing is incredibly important. They are nurturing the next generation. They are nurturing human beings who are, inshallah, you might be the next genius. They're nurturing, or the next Abu Hanifa, for example, or next Ghazali of our time. Yet we don't value it because it's not got a monetary value to it. So just because society doesn't value something doesn't mean that it's not one of the most awesome things that you can do. So I had to really struggle, even with my own friends, and trying to, it's just a constant pressure trying to explain yourself, trying to justify yourself. But for me, it made me more determined. It made me more determined that, yeah, this was my choice. And you know something? I'm going to show everyone. I'm going to show everybody. And when they see it, they're going to see that they were in the wrong and it wasn't me.
And was there ever a time when you doubted yourself, so like, maybe I just need to pack it all in, or I can't keep doing this, or this is just not happening for me?
Absolutely. There were times when I had doubts. It was times when I thought maybe everyone's right and I'm wrong. Because it was difficult, I was having difficulties abroad, financial difficulties, people weren't helpful, you're in a different country, you feel lonely, you feel cut off, you can't see any, at that time I wasn't married, who's going to marry me, I don't have a stable job, how am I going to settle down, what am I going to do in the future, all of those things play on you, and the added pressure from expectations of the community, family expectations. But I think I always used to get through it. I always used to say, inshallah, I've come out for the sake of Allah, and Allah's going to take care of me. I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. I would question my intention. What is my intention here? And if I'm sincere and I'm doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will not let me down. People might let me down. The community might let me down. My family might let me down. But my Creator's never going to let me down.
And so most people would have thought, once you've studied for a while, that you'd come back and perhaps you'd become an imam of a mosque. And you deliberately chose not to go down that route. Tell us a bit about what influenced your decision.
I think a number of things influenced my decision. One thing was that I had sacrificed 10 years of my adult life. So this wasn't, a lot of people become imams in their teenage years, they go to madrasa, they come out. But for me, it was once I was an adult. I started when I was 21, so I was already an adult. I had delayed getting married. I had delayed having earning. So, all my friends had got married, they got jobs, they had settled. I was in my early 30s. I still had virtually no money. I had no job. Alhamdulillah, I had got married. I was very lucky. Allah was very gracious. He gave me somebody who came on the path with me. But I didn't have what other people had. I had a number of choices when I came back. Yes, one of them was to become an imam. I didn't think I would last as an imam, to be honest, because, like I said, I'd sacrificed 10 years of my life, and I was going to, do something when I came back. I wasn't just going to sit back and just teach people tajweed, which other people could do. I was going to come back, inshallah, really do something to help my community, start tackling issues that other people were not willing to tackle, have the courage to do things that other people weren't going to do. That wouldn't sit well with an imam. That'd be seen as an imam who's rustling the feathers a bit too much. So I knew I would last a couple of months. If I had community committee, people telling me how I should or shouldn't do my job, I would say to them, I'm the one that's got 10 years of Sharia behind me. By all due respect, you run a business, so just manage the mosque, but leave the religious guidance to me. That kind of attitude probably wouldn't have lasted very long in mosques where people think that they employ you. So I wasn't going to, let my sacrifice of 10 years go down the tubes, in the sense that I come back and people shackle me or hold my hands behind my back and tell me what to do. I was going to be the one that was going to tell them what to do. So that attitude, it wasn't going to last. The other thing was, I never did this for money. If I wanted money, I could have become a hotshot lawyer and made a lot of money. So the money wasn't the determining factor. But at the same time, I felt it was disrespectful that somebody who's an admin person could earn just as much as the imam. So that shows that the community doesn't value the work of the imam or the time he's invested, where they can spend £1 million on refurbishing a mosque, but they will only pay the imam £18,000 a year or something. I had a disgraceful text by somebody a couple of years ago who said that we're looking for an imam for our mosque. I said, okay, send me the details. They were going to give the imam £12,000 a year. And I just said, look, this is disrespectful. This really is disrespectful. And they said, no, but we'll give him a flat to live in. I said, yeah, you're going to give him a damp flat that nobody, is going to live in. I had an imam, who said to me that he was getting £200 a week, and the house was provided by the mosque, but it was full of damp. And he complained and asked them to fix it. No one did anything. And he said his children developed asthma because of it. So I wasn't going to allow people to mess me about.
Now, people obviously talk a lot about mosques and community centres, and you've touched on some of the issues. What's the real root causes here? What's driving some of this real disconnect to, what standards they would expect of themselves, the people that run these places, and why they have these certain almost alternative expectations of what, the imam, religious figure should
It's
expect.
about how much value we attach to our religion. And let's just be honest, right? I'm a very firm believer just calling a spade a spade. I don't mess about. I don't think we've got time to mess about. Time's too precious. I'm 40 now. Time's moving. My life's running out. Your life's running out. And we know there's plenty of issues in the community. And top of my list is not which day we're doing Eid, which a lot of our imams spend a lot of time discussing. I think there's bigger things that we should be talking about than that. So it ultimately comes down to how much do we value our religion, how much do we value Islamic scholarship, how much do we value knowledge. And let's face it, it's not high on the priority list. Most of the people that came to this country did not come for religious reasons. They came for economic reasons. So they're economic migrants, so as to have a better way of life. Yes, alhamdulillah, they've done great work. No doubt about it. The fact that we have mosques today is a credit to them. You can't take that away from them. But I think it's now about improving that system, not just relying on what's been happening for the last 40, 50 years. It's about making those institutes relevant for the day and age we're living in. The reason why Imam Ghazali did what he did was because he lived at a time where knowledge was given value. So that meant he was given a decent salary to become a student of knowledge. When he became a teacher, he was paid well. He had status in society, he had respect. People listened to his opinions. Had he had to work in McDonald's as a part-time job, drive taxis to make ends meet so that he can go and study, I don't think he would have produced the results that he produced, being a fully fledged, fully funded scholar. It's like universities now. Why do these academics produce books? Because they get paid a good job, a good salary to do a full-time job. So they don't have to worry about second incomes. They're just sitting, concentrating on what they're doing. If you said to those academics, you need to write these books, but you also need to have a part-time job to make a living, then that would take their attention away from their academic studies. They wouldn't produce the same results. So it's just logic. And so I think we need to wake up and realize that if we want quality, right, then we have to invest. So the reason we have great mosques, beautiful mosques, is because we put a lot of money into them. If you're going to say, well, I want to build a mosque, but I'm only going to pay a fraction of that, you're going to end up with a pretty poor building. Same thing, if you want good quality scholarships, good quality scholars, then you have to pay them what a pharmacist or somebody else would pay, because the type of people you want to become your religious leaders, you want them to be academic, you want them to have certain level of education. Those people are going to go into other fields unless you make it attractive. So unless you pay them the same amount or similar amounts, they're going to think, well, why am I going to get 12 grand and get messed about and not be able to look after my family when I could become a pharmacist and 40, 50k and have a half decent life? If my community doesn't take it seriously, why should I take it seriously? And you're really just depending on a few individuals who are willing to sacrifice, and we can't really go forward like that.
And what would you say to those people that believe that Islamic education should be free? Because I'm sure, a lot of your courses you charge and there's a fee. But some people are still quite critical about that, and they say, look, it should be accessible to the masses, and Islam, you shouldn't be charged for the sake of knowledge.
Yeah, that's if you look at when the Ummah was in a healthy state, so the times of Ghazali, the state funded education is. Why do we have free education at Scottish universities? Because the government funds it. If the government decides, like in England, everyone's got to pay fees, then what happens? Ultimately, some people will not be able to afford it. So it was state driven. Why do we pay imams? Why do we pay imams in mosques? Most imams in mosques are paid a salary, because the understanding is if we do not pay somebody a salary, no one's going to do the job. So why is it okay to understand that, well, that's a necessity, we have to pay an imam, otherwise he won't do a job, but anyone who's not an imam should do it for free? If the community was funding all these things, yeah, we would do it for free. But when the community is not funding it, things cost money. If I'm using an Apple Mac, who's going to pay for that? If I'm going to hold a talk in a venue, who's going to pay the venue cost? Who's going to pay the printing cost? Who's going to pay all these other costs? Things cost something in life. Even when we could go to Quran classes, or when you get somebody to tutor your child for Quran, do they do it for free or do they pay for it? They pay for it. So we pay, and if we can pay for our secular education, people can send their children to private schools. Why do they send them to private schools? Why don't you just send them to free state schools? Because, well, they're not good enough, so we want to give them the best. Well, if you want to give your children the best in secular studies and you want to give them the best Islamic education, obviously, it's going to cost money, because for them to produce that material, for them to have those resources, they have to invest money into it. It doesn't just come out of thin air.
So what happens to these people? Because, is there a light switch that the standards that they expect and that they pay for in the secular world in terms of their own education or the children's education, it seems to be very different to the standards they expect to do when it comes to the mosque or religious teaching them? Is there almost a light switch where they stop thinking and just say...
Its motivation is because ultimately, and this is the truth that a lot of people find it hard to swallow, they do not value their religion at the same level. They value having a good career, having secular education more than Islamic education. And the proof of that I'll give you. I spoke to, and this is when we did this whole project, iSyllabus for schools, producing a decent curriculum for our 11 to 16 years, in other words, our teenagers. We've invested 4 years to 5 years of resources, funded somebody full time to work on that. That costs money. It didn't come out of thin air. Now, alhamdulillah, we've got a product. Now, when we looked into Islamic schools, ultimately, you have a budget for the English department, the maths department. That's a budget they've got to spend on resources. The worst or the lowest budget is for the Islamic studies in an Islamic school. Why is that? It's because ultimately it's parent driven. Parents still want their kids to have good grades in English, maths, and the Islamic studies is an add-on. It's just that, okay, alhamdulillah, they get a bit of Arabic, get a bit of Islamic studies, but if they got an A in that and failed everything else, they wouldn't be happy. If they got an A in everything and failed Islamic studies, that's more acceptable. So ultimately, they want the same as everybody else. They want their kids to have good secular grades and a little bit of Islam. So the priorities is that Islam is secondary and this is primary. And until that changes, you will always find the same attitude that when it comes to chemistry, or my kid's got a chemistry exam, I will pay £25 an hour for a tutor to get them through the exams. Or my kid's got bad tajweed, I'll get somebody £5 an hour or £10 an hour. So we will pay more for chemistry than for Quran. And what's going to benefit a person in the hereafter?
So take us to your next item, Shaykh.
Next item is this is, in my early days, I was looking at quotes from different writers, and I came across this quote from Rumi, the philosopher, the poet, the scholar, and it's a hypothetical thing. He says, God questions the soul at the gates of heaven. You are the same as when you left. You were blessed by a life full of opportunity. So where are the bruises and scars left by your journey? In other words, that life is not supposed to be easy. Life's not supposed to be full of comfort, and it's supposed to be difficult. You're supposed to go through these difficult periods in your life and come out the other side. And so, when you have an injury, you play a sport, you get injured, you got a scar, that shows you that you played that sport. So what he's saying here is that, you can't just come out life and not having done anything and be non-blemished. You have to have blemish. You're going to have these bruises and scars from life that you've pulled through, you've got through, you've been patient and got to the other side. That's the whole purpose of being existent. So you're going to have good times, you're going to have bad times, you're going to have challenges in your life, and these are things that you need to come through. And so going through those years of difficulty, it's quotes like that really kept me going, that that this is part and parcel of the package.
Now, part of one of your significant roles is with Unity Family Services, and you deal a lot with other people's problems and difficulties, and very complex scenarios as well. Now, in therapy, often there's a big emphasis about ensuring there's enough support for the therapist that is helping others. So the concept of helping the helpers. I mean, how do you cope with the intense sort of emotional burden? Because the things that you have to deal with and face are the real, is when things go wrong. It's not particularly glamorous or pleasant stories that people contact you about. It's when things are going wrong, lives are falling apart. I mean, when you go home, when you switch off, how do you deal with everything that you've been dealing with, I guess, throughout the day?
I think it's a difficult, it's certainly difficult. You do take on other people's burdens, other people's stories do play in your mind when you're sitting there on your bed thinking about the person, wishing the best. When you make dua for them, you try your best. I think this is where my training comes in. So sometimes it's just by reading a quote like that, or reading a hadith, or reading something that a scholar's maybe said, and it puts things in perspective. There's obviously the thing of reading Quran, doing the dhikr, that takes eases a heavy heart, and ultimately it's not sustainable to completely give yourself all the time. There's certain times where you need to recuperate. So Ramadan is a time where I don't deal with anyone's problems. That's my recharge period. I need to recharge my battery, my spiritual batteries. And every so often I will go away, leave Glasgow, and tend to go back to the places where I've studied and spend a bit of time with my teachers, spend a bit of time just being a student again, and being in that environment and just recharging my batteries. Obviously there's Hajj, there's Umrah, these other times where you recharge yourself.
And it might sound ironic because you surround yourself with hundreds of people per week, teaching them and engaging with them. But it sounds like it's quite a lonely experience being in the position that you're in.
It is a very lonely experience because there's not many people who have experienced what you've experienced. And I think, you can relate to people who have had the same experiences. So when I'm with fellow scholars, from time to time, every so often, maybe once a year, I'll meet with a few people that have studied with me. There's a connect. There's a feeling of you can really let your hair down because you can be with people who have been through what you've been through, who are doing what you do. And so you have the same difficulties, same challenges, they feel the same way. And so that support mechanism is very, very useful. And we have WhatsApp groups with other scholars. So that also with technology that helps. But it is a lonely space, because not many people are experiencing what you're experiencing. And I think this is where you draw inspiration from the Prophet ﷺ, how a lonely experience must have been for him, being a prophet by himself. There's only certain things only that he would have understood. You read stories of other prophets, Nuh alayhi salam, how he was treated by his people, Yunus alayhi salam in the belly of the whale. So you look at these great people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it was a lonely experience for them. I think I found it more difficult in the early years because, like I said, I was just an average guy. I had the same interests as everyone else, but as soon as I started to study, I started to drift from my friends. Certain things were not acceptable to me anymore. So, for example, swearing. I was trying to improve myself as a person. I don't want to be in an environment where people are swearing. My friends, they're just regular guys, saying things which are maybe not appropriate. Certain things which I'd heard from my teachers to stay away from. I was seeing that. So what happens? You tend to pull away, because either you're going to be like them, or they're going to become like you. And if there's a stalemate, then you have to pull yourself away. So it became a very lonely experience. Sometimes your family would be going out and say, "Oh, this is not a place that a sheikh should be going." So in other words, everyone was away and you're by yourself. So they didn't mean it, but you're feeling it. But I think that is part of the sacrifice you have to make. I remember once one of my teachers, some of the brothers, we were in Wales at the time, had been working a lot, and they're from like the Bosnian countries, and they were working to send money home. And he said, "Look, if you want to work, then go and work, right? But if you want to become a scholar, this is a lifelong experience. This is going to take you the rest of your life. It's going to take up your money. It's going to take up your health. It's going to take up everything. You've got to give this 100%. So you want to make money, by all means, go and make money, but don't become a scholar. But if you want to become a scholar, then you get ready to pay the price." And I remember at that point, I thought, this is a choice. You have to make a choice right now. If you can't hack it, then go for another life. But if you want to do this, this is the price that you're going to have to pay. And so, alhamdulillah, it's a conscious decision. So, yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's lonely. But that's part and parcel of what I signed up for.
And I wonder whether one of the challenges, particularly in dealing with the family relationships and social issues that you deal with, is that you can't just go and pick up a book and say, okay, here's the fatwa for this situation. I can imagine that a lot of the situations you face are quite unique. I mean, can you give is that accurate? And can you give us any examples of?
Yeah. I mean, again, you have spent time with great people, scholars, but they're in a different cultural context to you. They're living in a Muslim country. They're living with in Muslim, predominantly majority Muslim communities, from a more kind of conservative culture. The kind of stuff that they're dealing with, it's challenging, but it's not not always the same that you're facing. So you may ask them a question, they've never faced it before, they're not sure themselves. It's not something that you can look up a book sometimes. So sometimes you're in a situation, you hear something, and you just have to use everything that you know from your knowledge, everything you've gained, your understanding of the world, your secular studies, every type of knowledge that you have, to try to ultimately help the person in front of you. And it's not always easy. So, if I remember when I was dealing with a sister who she said my husband's had an affair. And again, we know it's haram, but it does happen. It's it's not unique to just living in the West. It could happen in a Muslim country as well. So I was driving my car at the time. He said, it's a bit more complicated than that. I said, okay, how's it more complicated? He said, well, the affair was with another man. And at that point I had to pull over and I said, can you say that again? And he said it was with another man. I was like, okay, you need to come and see me. So nothing could have prepared me for that, you know. So I'm now, it's Muslims. And her husband, I mean, his beard's bigger than mine, you know, a very outwardly practicing Muslim, somebody who's got a good, decent status in society, got a good job. I don't want to give too many details away because confidentiality issues. But, you know, she doesn't know how to deal with it. It was the first time I'd ever come across this. So then you're like, okay, well, how can we try and resolve this? And sometimes it's just the fact that, you know, you are there for somebody. You may not have the answers, but you're there to help and support and try your best. And I think people just appreciate the fact that they had somebody that they could turn to and talk to in confidence and bounce things off, because they're not quite sure if they're doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing, because there was a child involved in this as well. So it wasn't just a simple case of getting a divorce, there was somebody's child involved. And so, you know, these are challenging times that we're living in, that there's no easy solutions or answers to it, which is why, like I said to you, to me, you know, which day Eid is not really a priority for me anymore. I've had those discussions, I've given my opinion, and I'm not willing to spend any more time on it. There are other issues which are going completely unnoticed in the community. No one is dealing with them, and where are these people supposed to go?
Shaykh Amer, take us to the final item that you're going to take on this desert island.
So this is a quote where I can't really remember where I've read it, but I think it's really helpful for myself and also for others. It's, we decried others for their defects, but when we saw our own defects, we realized no one had any defects. So ultimately, you know, it's about self-development. It's about your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's about you trying to become the best version of you, trying to work on your character, trying to continuously become a better person for yourself, for other people around you, for your community, for your family. And very often we get distracted by other people. We get distracted by other people's lives, what's happening in other people's lives. And we're focusing so much on other people and what they're doing or they're not doing. And we forget that ultimately Allah is going to ask you about you. He's not going to ask me about Dr. Aman. He'll ask you about you yourself. He's going to ask me, Amer Jamil, I gave you a life, I gave you health, I gave you wealth, I gave you X amount of years on the earth. I asked you to worship me. What did you do? What's your response going to be? He's not going to ask me about my mum, my dad. He's going to ask me about me. So if we spend all our time focusing on other people and forget ourselves, we're actually just deluding ourselves. And it's a trick of shaitan. So I love this quote because it says that if you become busied by yourself, it makes you oblivious to other people's faults. And if we were all just concentrating on ourselves, we wouldn't have time to be looking at the faults of other people. We'd be too busy trying to fill the holes in ourselves. And when you start looking inside, you're going to realize there's so much room for improvement. And this is the way of the pious predecessors. They were more worried about themselves and sorting themselves out than going around criticizing other people. So I think this, I read it actually quite early on in my journey, but it was all about, you know, ultimately I have to do the best I can for myself. I have to build this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will stand in front of him one day. There'll be nobody between me and him. He will hold me to account for every single breath I've had on this earth and what I did with it, and what am I going to answer him. And which is something that really drives me to push myself as much as possible to get as much done in this life so that I can stand with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when he says, what did you do? I can say, Ya Allah, I tried my best. I did this, I did that, I did that, I did that. I know it wasn't good enough, but I did it for your sake, in the hope that something that I've done with my life, you were happy with, and you're so happy with it that it'll overlook all my other defects and all my failings, and you envelop me in your mercy and give me pardon and enter me into the garden.
Now, one can only imagine how busy you are, and we've talked a lot about, I guess, the different projects and issues that you deal with all the time. But you must find some time to relax and have a laugh. I mean, what do you do? Tell us a bit about when you need that downtime. What do you do?
I like playing with my kids. So I've got twins, which are 4.5, and a little toddler who's 1.5 years. I just like messing about with them. And sometimes we just, we'll ask them questions and, wrestle with them. I just like spending time with my family, just noising up my nieces and nephews, whether it's on WhatsApp or just having a bit of a laugh with my family. We're quite a sarcastic family. We're quite high in sarcasm, so we like just having little digs at each other. But it's all in good. It's all in good spirit. So I think a lot of it's just family time. A lot of it's just family time.
As we send you to the desert island, you'll be alone. How do you think you'll cope with the solitude on this island?
I think you're only alone if you forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you. If you read the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. He is with you wherever you are. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. We are closer to you than your jugular, or closer to him than his jugular vein. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always been there before you were created, when you were created. He's been there with you from your earliest days on this earth. He's with you now, and he'll ultimately always be with you. And if you understand that, if you feel that Allah is with you, then you're never alone.
Okay. And on this desert island, you can take another book apart from the Quran along with you. What would you take?
I would take the Hikam of Imam Ibn Ata'illah, which is a book of wisdoms, about over 200 wisdoms. And the reason I would take that book is because it ultimately talks about your relationship with God. And, like creed is, you have to believe in this about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can't believe in this. It's the theoretical skeleton of belief. But the hikam is almost like the practical creed. It's how, like this idea of tawheed, okay? How do you actualize that tawheed and feel it in your heart and live it and breathe it? This book it really brings that out. It shows you how to have that ultimate, deep, intimate relationship with God.
And you can take a luxury item along with you. What would that be?
I think throughout my studies, when I went abroad, someone came to visit me, I'd always ask for a case of iron brew. So I think this something that they put in that drink, which is highly addictive. No matter how much you stay off fizzy drinks, as soon as you have that, especially when you have a chippy, it's iron brew with some ice. Allahu Akbar.
So Shaykh Amer, thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your desert island gems. May Allah support you in all the work that you're doing, give you strength and barakah, and give you the real the wisdom and the steadfastness to continue to benefit the community, not just in Scotland but across the world. So Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you for listening to Desert Island Gems. Let us know what you think of the show and keep an eye out for special versions on McMuslim.tv.